How's it going, everybody? I am with our CIO of Freedom Family Office, Kyle. As you guys know, we recently decided to launch a short form podcast for not only our clients, but entrepreneurs and business owners across the states that look, we know how busy you guys are on your schedules, and sitting down for an hour-long podcast isn't optimal. So we launched the idea of this taking you the same amount of time it takes you to go to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts to get your coffee in 10 minutes or less. And Kyle's going to be sharing weekly insights and what he sees in the markets and the education that he instills into our client base through this free podcast. But for today, this is just an intro about what we're doing. And I thought the best way to do it is to learn more about who you're going to be learning from, who I'm going to be interviewing. And so, Kyle, maybe I'll give it to you just to share a little bit about your background and your role at Freedom Family Office.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So as you said, I'm the Chief Investment Officer with Freedom Family Office. I've been managing money, it's coming up on 20 years in the industry. Started most of it with the larger firm, started off as a trader, then, typical financial advisor, managing money, uh, certified financial planner, certified investment management analyst, accredited portfolio management advisor, former adjunct professor. So, I've been through, kind of started the career way, before the 2008 crash. So I kind of learned, by fire in this industry. And so, yeah, I want to just be able to, every week kind of we'll talk different topics, the things that are happening in the market, the economy, whether it be how to position your investments, what I'm seeing, what risks are out there, what opportunities. It's I think always when you're managing money and you're looking from a portfolio perspective, there's there's it's never there's never an end to the amount of data that can you can look at. Some of it's noise, some of it's actually worthwhile. So we'll try to hopefully cut through some of the noise and emphasize the actual data and what that should mean for investors out there.
And that's what I love transparently about Kyle's approach. It's a lot of focusing on no extras and noise and flashy lights and really just dive down at the data on what matters most for you. So looking forward to that. And then Kyle, on your side, when you look at the type of clients we work with at Freedom Family Office, who do you think is good to listen to something like this? You focus predominantly on business owners or entrepreneurs, but anything else you could share?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think anyone, right, who wants a little bit different. There's, plenty of podcasts out there from, some of the major investment firms, and I'd say sometimes they just get a little too much into the jargon. Sometimes it's, directed more towards other advisors. It's the big firms trying to sell investment products to other advisors, whereas we'll be, probably talking a little bit more to the actual investors. So I think anyone that's got a portfolio out there from for themselves that they're trying to manage, or trying to get a sounding board of what their current advisors are doing in their portfolios and whether it makes sense. I think that for any individual investor, we should be able to touch on some things to help them. And then also, yeah, like you said, business owners, people who want to potentially hear some of the economic data that's happening, and how does that translate into how they run their business, or how they kind of handle their own personal finances. Well, I'm sure we'll touch on some of that stuff as well.
And the last thing, Kyle, I know you have a CFP. What is that for people listening? I mean, some people know what it is, but can you describe that?
Yeah, so certified financial planner, it's just it's kind of the gold standard as far as financial planning, credentials. I've had that now for 15, 16 years. Basically, it just covers so it's not just investment focused, right? It's making sure that you can focus on how investments fit into the bigger picture of someone's financial lives. So, the curriculum, and if you were to hire a CFP, right, there's a certain formula that they use, but basically it's being able to touch on cash flow, retirement planning, insurance planning, estate planning. It's on all the major topics of financial life. So again, that was one of the first credentials I got out of, starting in the industry, even though I was a trader, was, I realized that, right, what you do in a bubble as far as choosing the best stock and things like that, no one can get it right 100% of the time. You have to have a plan in place, right? You have to make sure that you have whatever your investment strategy has to align with your overall financial plan. And then it's not always what you make, it's what you keep. So, the other aspects of tax planning and estate planning, and, making sure you don't leverage yourself too much and things like that. It's really important to make sure that you take it all into consideration, even if investments is your focus.
100%. I love that. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I'm really excited about us doing this weekly because I have a significant background in podcasting and I've sort of been trained to weed out to ask the questions that matter most and not the questions that people just want to hear. And then Kyle does a really great job of breaking through the fluff and noise and getting you the data-driven insights, especially being able to interview someone as the host, myself hosting with someone that's running a family office and managing investments of the ultra wealthy is going to be a treat. So we're looking forward to bringing you guys that information weekly. Thanks, Kyle.
Of course, appreciate it.